Welcome to DrupalBrief. This is an AI-generated summary of another video, podcast, or blog post. If you want to learn more about what's being discussed here, then please go check out the source. This podcast is sponsored by Drupal Forge. Drupal Forge is an open-source, lightning-fast demo, development, and testing platform. It spins up Drupal sites in less than 5 seconds, complete with a browser-based VS Code. Want to try Drupal CMS, Drupal AI, Experience Builder? No need to install anything on your laptop. Drupal Forge has you covered. Even Composer, Drush, and AI keys are pre-installed so you can hit the ground running. Demo Drupal in less than 5 seconds only at Drupal Forge. Please take a second to click subscribe. We're a new podcast and this helps us a lot. Okay, that's it. Ready? Here we go.
You know that feeling, right? The digital dread. When you're building something dynamic for your website, something data rich, and you suddenly realize you're either making a total mess of your content management system, bloating it up, or you're about to shell out for another external tool. Yeah, we've all been there. Just way too much information, too many processes clashing. It's overwhelming. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really going to cut through that noise. Our mission is to bring back some order, some efficiency, maybe even some, dare I say, joy to your web development, specifically within Drupal. We are diving deep into the Views CSV source module. And the idea behind it is, well, brilliantly simple. It lets Drupal Views, your go-to tool for displaying content query, a CSV file, directly. It just bypasses the database for visualizing that content. Think of it like a shortcut to clarity and actually to quite a bit of power. So our goal here, our mission for this deep dive is to unpack exactly how this little module can declutter your strategy, streamline processes, clean up your tech stack. We'll dig into some surprising facts, some really practical insights, basically make your development life a bit easier, hopefully more joyful. So yeah. Let's get into it. Okay, so this idea of decluttering, it immediately makes you think of, like, the KonMari method, doesn't it? Sparking joy. But how do you actually apply that philosophy, keep what serves you, ditch what doesn't, to the digital world, specifically CMS, which can get so cluttered?
That's actually a perfect way to look at it, because the Views CSV source module, it really does apply that KonMari idea directly to your CMS. It's not just about, cleaning up the database tables. It's about simplifying the whole thing, your entire content ecosystem. Because, yeah, things can get incredibly cluttered in a CMS, just like a messy house, right? This module helps stop that digital sprawl. And it tackles this in, I'd say, 3 key ways. First, it helps declutter your processes. You see this all the time. Organizations relying really heavily on spreadsheets, Excel, Google Sheets, whatever, for organizing stuff, collaborating. Instead of forcing everyone to drop those tools they know and, learn complex Drupal workflows, this module just meets them halfway. You can literally just say, look, prepare it all in Excel, give me an export. And that simple change, it cuts down hugely on managing people, managing processes, permissions, all that overhead.
Right. Avoids that whole training hurdle, too.
Yes, exactly. Then second, it helps declutter your content strategy. Good content strategy is about getting the right content to the right people at the right time. Pretty simple concept, hard to execute. But sometimes this desire for flashy dynamic widgets can accidentally lead you down this, well, I call it slippery slope. You start polluting your core strategy with all these one-off little entity types for every new feature. This module lets you add those enhancements without creating all that feature bloat. You stay focused on the core business.
Keep your eye on the prize, essentially.
Pretty much. And third, it declutters your technology stack. Because think about it, when every single new feature needs a whole new entity type, you very quickly end up with a super crowded admin interface, right? And a bloated database. This isn't a new problem either. I've seen pictures from DrupalCons way back, 2009, complaining about the explosion of tables. So Views CSV source gives you a leaner way, avoids that technical clutter, keeps the system healthier.
Okay, that's a really clear breakdown. A digital spring clean, like you said. Now, thinking about that interactive stuff, the data-heavy features, a lot of people's minds immediately jump to external BI tools. Tableau, Power BI, maybe Airtable. And look, they're powerful tools, absolutely. But what are the really strong, maybe overlooked reasons to build this stuff inside Drupal using something like Views CSV source? Especially if a team's maybe already got licenses for those external things. What's the big argument against them?
That's a really crucial question. And it often comes down to TCO, total cost of ownership, even if it's not obvious at first. So first off, a massive strategic benefit. 0 license fees. and zero user fees at any scale.
Okay, huge.
It is. It's not just saving a bit of money now. It fundamentally shifts your budget. You're not locked into these recurring, often user-based charges that just keep climbing. You free up money for, actual innovation instead. Many of those services, their costs scale exponentially. People forget that when they see a shiny new tool.
Right, the hidden scaling costs.
Oh, exactly. Then there's seamless theming. Let's be honest, embedding an external tool in an iframe, it rarely looks quite right. You're always fighting with styling limitations. It never feels truly native. Build it in Drupal. It just uses your theme. Looks and feels right instantly.
Consistency.
You get unified authentication and permissions. This is a big one. No separate system to manage users for. You just use Drupal's roles. Restrict access based on who's logged in. Simple. Trying to sync users and permissions to another system, that often becomes a massive ongoing headache.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine.
And performance and caching. A Drupal module like this benefits directly from the site's built-in cache. Once the data is processed, it can be cached right there on the server. That means really fast load times for your users. Those external BI widgets, they often load their entire application library, plus query a separate service every single time the page loads. That can really slow things down.
Noticeably, yeah.
Definitely. Then there's data governance and privacy. Super important. Keep your data hosted on your site. You retain full control. You know it's not being quietly used for some other purpose buried in page 50 of the terms and conditions. Vital for sensitive data.
Absolutely critical nowadays.
And this approach also gives you robust ways to handle unowned or untrusted data sources. Drupal gives you really granular control. Like with Views CSV source, you can choose to say, okay, trust the HTML in this text field. But maybe more importantly, Drupal's views have strong sanitization built right in. It protects you against nasty stuff like malicious code injection, maybe harmful SVG code, things that could compromise your site if you just dumped raw external data in.
Good point. Security angle.
Yeah, and related to that, firewall and network security, every external connection just increases your attack surface. Keeping processing inside Drupal reduces that risk. And honestly, sometimes, for something relatively small, a tool like Tableau is it's overkill. You don't need a giant platform for a simple chart or table.
Tool for the job.
Exactly. And finally, and this is really about empowering your team. It leverages existing knowledge. So many content editors, site builders, they already know how to make views in Drupal. They don't have to climb this huge learning curve for Tableau or Power BI. It's about using the skills your team already has.
Those are some seriously compelling points for keeping it in-house with Drupal. It's not just, like you say, an alternative. It feels like a more integrated, more efficient way altogether. So, okay, let's bring this down to earth. What kind of real-world stuff, what common needs or scenarios really benefit most from this module? Where does it shine?
Yeah, good question. If you look at, say, government agencies, they constantly need to present dynamic data publicly. Think about open data and transparency. Maybe a city government wants a crime log. But with interactive maps or charts showing recent stats, that data comes from a totally separate system, updates frequently. They can't possibly update static images every day.
Right. Impossible manually.
Or budget forecasting. A department needs reports, looking ahead, using salary data from HR systems to project costs. Again, that data changes. A static report is useless almost immediately. Or, in public health, which is my background, a city might do a retrospective look at how they handled something like the COVID pandemic, presenting complex case data, trends over time, visually for the public.
Okay, yeah, does make sense.
And what all these examples have in common, really, is the data is dynamic. It changes often. Static HTML just won't cut it. The output needs to be interactive. Users need to filter, search through the data, and it's usually data intensive, just way too much information to hard code or manage as individual content items. And for these kinds of things, yeah, we often pair Views CSV source with other great Views plugins, things like the Charts module, a Views simple math field for calculations, Views on-off for toggling columns, or mapping tools like the Charts HighCharts map module.
Got it. So it plays well with others in the Views ecosystem.
Definitely.
Okay, this is crucial then, the comparison. On one side, the traditional Drupal way creating entities, it's the workhorse, right?
Yeah.
Served us well for ages. On the other side, this lean, mean Views CSV source module. Can you walk us through why the standard way, despite its strengths, kind of falls short for these specific use cases? What are the drawbacks?
Sure. Look, the standard entity-based approach, it's fantastic for managing standard content like articles, pages, blog posts. It's been the core of Drupal's power for, more than 2 decades. But when you're dealing with this kind of dynamic, often spreadsheet-driven data visualization, it introduces a lot of friction. The process itself is it's very layered.
Yeah.
Typically, you've got to start by creating a new content type, or maybe some other entity, like a custom storage entity, if you're trying to be clever about it. Then you need to maybe add vocabularies for categorization, define all the taxonomy terms, meticulously set up all the fields, text fields, number fields, date fields, then configure permissions for who can create or edit this stuff. And then you need a way to actually get the data in, usually feeds importer or migrate, maybe the content import module. Only after all of that can you finally start building your actual view to display it.
Wow, okay. That sounds like a lot of steps even before you get to the fun part.
It is. And that multi-step process, it immediately means a huge time sink. I remember one project, personally, it was painful. We had to create an entity with over 50 fields just for tuberculosis tracking data. Each field configuration in Drupal, it takes like 2 screens to set up. Then you have the complexity of mapping the incoming data to all those fields during the import. It was just incredibly tedious and expensive in terms of time.
50 fields.
Yeah. And then there are these annoying permission considerations. If the only reason this data exists is to power a view, you probably don't want users stumbling across the individual node page for row number 37, right? So then you need more modules like Rabbit Hole or something similar just to block people from directly accessing those underlying entity pages. Another layer of complexity.
Right, more config, more potential conflicts.
Exactly. And this approach, it can easily lead to content strategy clutter. It's that slippery slope I mentioned. Before you know it, just to display a few data sets, you might end up with, say, 25 content types and 60 vocabularies cluttering up your admin interface. You spend more time managing the CMS structure itself than focusing on your actual business goals. Some people call it hitting Drupal rock bottom.
Drupal rock bottom.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, it's a real thing. And technically, it causes database clutter. Every new entity type creates its own base table in the database. And then it creates a new table for each and every one of those fields. Now, okay, modern databases can handle lots of tables. But this database bloat makes things like direct database inspection or backups more cumbersome. It increases storage costs. And like I said, your admin UI becomes a maze.
Yeah. Finding anything becomes a chore.
And finally, you can run into performance issues. If you have a view that isn't using aggregation and is trying to load every single one of those entities, you hit limits. Basic hosting might choke trying to display, say, more than 600 nodes at once without a pager. Add in relationships to taxonomies or other entities, performance degrades even further.
Okay, so that's a pretty compelling case for the drawbacks in this context. So now flip the coin. How does the View CSV source approach cut through all that?
Okay, so contrast all those steps with View CSV source. It's basically 1 or 2 steps. You either upload your CSV file to your server, or you point the view to a remote CSV file URL, and you create your view.
Okay, so like that.
Just like that. The advantages are immediate and obvious. First, massive time savings. You're just skipping all those steps of creating entities, fields, vocabularies, setting up importers. Second, it handles both local and remote files. That's crucial if the data updates frequently, like grabbing a daily report from another system. It even has built-in support for basic authentication on remote files, and it uses a cache duration setting, basically. It saves a copy of the CSV locally for a set time, which really boosts performance for remote files.
Smart caching.
Yeah. It also offers huge workflow enhancements. You're kind of swimming with the tide here. You empower the people in your organization who excel using Excel, as the saying goes. There's no need for them to learn Drupal content management, no complex data import process to manage. Just save the file.
Meets people where they are.
Exactly. And critically, no content strategy clutter. The chart or table you build, it's just seen as an enhancement to your existing content. It improves engagement, sure, but it doesn't derail your core strategy by adding unnecessary content types.
Keeps things focused.
Right. And for database hygiene, it's beautiful. No unnecessary tables get created. No expensive database joins happen when the view runs. It has almost zero impact on your database structure or inspection. And it just leverages Drupal's normal view caching.
So much cleaner, technically.
Much cleaner. And in terms of performance for displaying the data, it integrates with a really fast PHP library called League CSV. This allows it to efficiently stream and process the data. It can handle rendering tens of thousands of rows, tens of thousands of data points, surprisingly smoothly right within a Drupal view.
Tens of thousands.
Yeah.
That's impressive for processing a flat file like that.
It really is quite powerful.
Okay, that comparison makes the difference crystal clear. It's not just simpler, it fundamentally avoids so many potential problems. It feels like a different philosophy entirely.
Yeah.
Now, for those of us who like to peek under the hood, how does it actually work? What are the clever technical bits? And then, yes, I definitely want to hear about these examples you mentioned. Sounds like they're worth waiting for.
Absolutely. So technically, one of the really neat things is how it queries without using SQL. It essentially bypasses Drupal's standard database API for the query itself. It defines its own connection class, its own select class, its own query plugin base class. This whole setup lets it talk directly to the CSV file. It uses a JSON-based query syntax that PHP can interpret. You can actually see this JSON query in the View's preview output if you turn on the debugging option. It's kind of cool to see.
Interesting. So it translates the Vue UI into JSON for PHP to handle against the CSV.
Pretty much, yeah. Now, of course, like any approach, there are trade-offs, potential bottlenecks. Because it's not using the database for querying, the entire processing load falls on your web server. PHP is doing the work sorting, filtering, maybe even summing or averaging if you use other Views modules tasks that SQL databases are usually highly optimized for. Also, just practically loading, 50,000 rows directly into an HTML table on your page that can create a massive chunk of HTML for Drupal's cache system to try and store, which can sometimes be an issue itself.
Right, the rendered output size.
Exactly. And one specific thing. If you use that cache duration setting for remote files, it currently reads the entire contents of that remote CSV into PHP memory before it starts processing. For really enormous files, that could potentially hit PHP memory limits on some servers, though we do have plans for streaming options to help with that specific case.
Okay, good to know the trade-offs, important technical details.
Yeah.
But now, the payoff. Show us what this thing can actually do. Let's see these examples.
Right, let's look at some real stuff, all using open data from the Chicago data portal. They really showcase how easy this makes things. First example, a small multiples heat map showing Chicago crime statistics. This uses a CSV file with, get this, over 100,000 rows of data.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, and it uses two separate views displays combined with the chart's high charts map module. We set up a contextual filter, meaning the map changes based on part of the URL, so you can filter by crime type, like show me just battery or just theft. It uses Chicago wards as the geographical areas on the map. The map settings can point to GeoJSON files or even a taxonomy for the shapes. But the core point, get the CSV, import the pre-configured view, done.
100,000 rows into an interactive map. Just like that.
Pretty much. Okay, second example, budget forecasting for employee salaries. This uses a data set of about 32,000 rows. Here, we use the View Simple Math Field module. It takes the annual salary column, strips out the $, comma, using a bit of Twig.
Twig?
Yeah.
Templating engine?
Yeah, you can use Twig right inside of View's custom text field. It's super handy. So it cleans the number, then multiplies it by, say, 1.03 to get a projected salary for next year. This example also uses the Views Fields on-off module, which lets the user dynamically hide or show columns, like maybe toggle the department or job title columns on the fly.
Nice interactive touch.
Yeah. And again, setup is mainly just getting the CSV and importing the view config. And one more quick one, COVID-19 cases visualized over time. This uses the standard charts module, specifically its chart.js submodule, to create line graphs showing trends from the case data CSV. Simple, effective visualization.
Okay, those are really powerful examples.
And the key takeaway from all of them is just the simplicity. Because the data is just sitting in a file, all you really need to do is get that file somewhere the server can read it, import the Views configuration YAML file, and boom, you've got the whole thing. For the charts examples, you might need to install the charting library itself, but that's usually just a one-time setup.
It really lowers the barrier to creating these kinds of rich, interactive data features. It's quite astonishing, actually. So looking down the road, what's next for Vue's CSV source? Where is it heading? Any exciting developments planned?
Yeah, definitely. It's an active module, always evolving.
Okay.
One big thing we're working on is giving users the choice between the current in-memory loading and true streaming for processing files. That'll really help with those super large files and memory usage concerns.
Ah, that's great. The streaming option.
Exactly. We're also looking at adding additional authentication options for remote files beyond just basic HTTP auth. maybe through a plugin system, so people could potentially add connectors for things like API keys or OAuth, making it easier to connect securely to more sources.
Expanding connectivity.
Right. And better date handling. We recently made improvements so numeric filters can treat text that looks like numbers as numbers. The next step is doing something similar for dates to make date comparisons and filtering more robust and intuitive. We also need better documentation for embedding these views, showing people clearly how to pull the view data into a regular node page using tools like Entity Embed or Entity Views Embed. Make it seamless.
Yeah, integrating it into content is key.
Definitely. And then here's the slightly more out there provocative idea for the future: AI integration. Imagine, you just drop your CSV file into your site's chatbot interface and say, hey, build me a view using columns X, Y, and Z from this CSV.
Whoa.
Yeah. We already have a proof of concept charts AI agent that can build a chart configuration from a prompt. The next leap would be integrating the data source selection right into that AI conversation.
That's genuinely exciting. A glimpse of a very different way of building things.
It could be. But even without the AI, the core value is already there.
It really is. It powerfully underlines what this module does, transforming raw CSV data into dynamic, interactive, themed Drupal views, making complex data manageable, accessible, without the database mess or derailing your strategy. It really does feel like that shortcut to making web development a bit more joyful, like we said at the start. So we've taken a real deep dive today into Vue's CSV source. We've seen how it can declutter your CMS, streamline your workflows, sharpen strategy, clean up the tech stack, all while bringing these big benefits like cost savings, better performance, and actually empowering your existing team. As we wrap up, here's something to chew on, a final thought for you. How many hidden spreadsheets are floating around your organization right now? The ones maybe ignored, maybe updated manually by one heroic person, maybe just lost on someone's hard drive? How many of those could be instantly turned into living, breathing, interactive data visualizations using this module, bringing fresh life and real, actionable insight to data that might just be gathering dust? Definitely something to think about.
We really encourage you to check out the Vue CSV source module for your next data viz challenge in Drupal. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
That is a wrap on today's Drupal Brief. Remember, this was an AI-generated summary, so be sure to check out the original source for the full story and all the details. Before you go, if what you heard today got you excited about trying something new in Drupal, remember that Drupal Forge has you covered. Whether you want to test that new module, demo a concept to your team, or just explore the latest Drupal features, you're literally 5 seconds away from a fully loaded development environment. No downloads, no setup, no hassle. Just pure Drupal innovation at your fingertips. If this episode was helpful, please hit that subscribe button and leave us a review. It really helps other Drupal developers discover the show. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next Drupal Brief.